I hope you're ready for this panel. We're talking policy. Specifically, how can our elected officials move future of work trends in a direction that creates opportunity for all workers? What's government's role in all of this is what we're going to be talking about. In this session, I'm going to be joined by Sarah Comeau. Sarah's the Director of Programs and co-founder of the School Justice Project, a really awesome and much needed initiative and very pertinent to our topic of future of work, but I'm going to let her talk a little bit more about that in a second. She's an Aspen Fellow, focused her whole law school career on indigent representation and the protection of civil rights and human rights. She graduated from the American University Washington College of Law and lives in Washington, D.C. Also excited to have Gerry Gibbs. Gerry's the founding principal at Capital Impact Group. He was a presidential appointee in the Clinton administration. He served in the U.S. Department of Labor. He also has extensive political campaign experience, serving as a senior advisor to legislative and gubernatorial candidates, and he was a political director in New Jersey for the presidential campaign of Al Gore. Please join me in welcoming Sarah Comeau and Gerry Gibbs on this session on policy.
So I'm excited for this next panel. Future of work, as we've talked about, doesn't always include everybody. And this panel, we're going to explore the role that government, elected officials, policy play in the shaping of work. Basically the question is, how can government move future of work trends in a direction that's going to create opportunities for all workers? So I want to introduce, today we're joined by Gerry Gibbs. Gerry, in his role, is the founding principal at the Capital Impact Group, and also Sarah Comeau, who's the co-founder and director of programs at the School Justice Project. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Gerry to introduce what he does at Capital Impact Group.
Thank you, Sam, for having me. Gerry Gibbs, I'm a principal at Capital Impact Group. We are a bipartisan public affairs and business development firm based in Trenton, New Jersey, our state capital. I've spent a good part of my career, all of it really, kind of in the political science and policy space. Kind of cut my teeth on Capitol Hill as a legislative policy aide. Worked in a presidential administration, and then came to New Jersey in the early 2000s to work in the treasurer's office here in the state of New Jersey, and started my firm in 2006. So, I'm at my core, kind of a policy wonk, geek, nerd, whatever you want to call it, but very excited to have this conversation, particularly in the COVID world that we live in. It has drastically changed the way that we do business at the firm, and it's drastically changed the behavior of legislators and policymakers, the governor, everyone, in ways that are unique, in ways that I think are going to be long lasting, which is very germane to this conversation.
Sure. I mean, I'm excited to hear your perspective, Gerry, especially given the COVID moment. Sarah Comeau, very excited that you were able to join us today, because I think what you do in your work is tremendous and is highly relevant for the topic of future work that doesn't always get included. So if you could, I'd love for you to share just some background on your work with the audience.
So I co-run a nonprofit in DC called the School Justice Project. We're a legal services organization, so we're a team of attorneys, and we use special education law and enforcement of special education law to disrupt mass incarceration and promote community-based alternatives to education. What we do is we represent young people between the ages of 17 and 22 that are court involved, that also have disabilities. If you are under age 22, and you have disabilities, you're entitled to education regardless of incarceration. So if you're in a prison, if you're in a jail, you're still entitled to education. But what we're seeing is that young people are not getting access to education. And when I say education, I'm also including workforce training, employability skills, vocational learning, and post-secondary, like preparing for post-secondary education. And I'm very excited to participate in this panel specifically today, because I think that the governments and policymakers have an obligation to include our court-involved young people in DC. These are 100% people of color, and they are excluded consistently time and again from the conversation about what workforce looks like. How can we ensure that policies to promote like equitable work opportunities include these young people? And it's broader than just policies, right? It's also a conversation about budget. How can we make sure that we have programming that is budgeted for, that reflects our values, that all young people can access equitable opportunities? So excited to be here. And to Gerry's comment about COVID, when we move forward and we are taking things digitally, we cannot forget the population of our communities and of our cities that cannot access technology to go digitally. So policies also have to reflect that technology divide.
But follow up to you, Sarah. When you talk about technology, I guess, what is your perspective on technology as it relates to your clients, on how accessible we make or lean into technology today?
It's great. I'll use COVID as an example. When schools shut down and kids went remote, for the young people that I represent that are in the community, they don't have computers at home. And it took about 2 months to negotiate with DC public schools to figure out how to get these kids access to computers. And some schools would say, oh, we already gave a computer to one of your younger peers, so we're not going to also give a computer to you. So access to even like a simple thing like a computer so you could get online to go to school. I had clients using their phone to try to figure out how to use Google Docs to participate in their online classroom. For the young people that are locked up in the jail and in prisons, it becomes even more of a struggle and even more of an issue because these institutions and these structures, first of all, they're not wired for Wi-Fi and internet. And secondly, how are you going to give everyone computers? So we're currently in a battle to give all of our clients that are locked down access to computers and to technology.
You know, if I could jump in on this, Sarah's just touched on something that I saw in pretty stark terms, the digital divide, if you would. And I know that's an older phrase that's been thrown about, particularly back in previous administrations, but it really laid out stark the difference between folks that had access to technology, access to internet, the ability to participate fully remotely, and those that did not. And I happen to represent a couple clients that had the ability to provide free laptops, iPads, and other IT equipment for kids just so they could participate in school. And, you know, I think, you know, this past 3 months or so of remote learning really kind of laid bare how something is not having proper access to technology can really set you back. So that it's something going forward, I think, from a policy perspective, legislators, particularly ones that are focused on education policy, have been really focused on. The Commissioner of Education gave a briefing in front of the Education Committee here in the Senate. And the chairwoman, Teresa Ruiz, who's a senator out of the city of Newark, she grilled him. I mean, just absolutely lambasted him about what was the department doing to create opportunities for students across the board to participate fully in this remote learning environment that we were in, and quite frankly, could be in the fall.
I'm interested, Gerry, your perspective, given especially your background. What do you think the role is of government? And this might seem, you know, like I'm trying to take it higher level, but especially we've got a lot of C-level leaders, HR managers, employees who are, you know, in the audience for this event. What do you think the responsibility or the role of government is when we talk about things like labor and future of work?
You know, that's a great question. I think it's creating an atmosphere or creating a scenario where you provide access for the kids, provide access to the tools of learning, right? So if we go back to school in the fall, we have to ensure that these schools are safe. Parents need to feel that they're sending their kids to a environment that's been sanitized, that is adhering to social distancing protocols, that's really allowing movement of young kids in a manner that keeps them safe and healthy. I think that's on every parent's mind first and foremost. And if there's any doubt that doesn't exist, I think a lot of parents would rather not have their kids come to school. At least I feel that way. The other part that I think government can play a role in is it's funding. It's funding for not just schools, but also programs that touch our social safety net. Sarah touched on the programming for young people that are involved in the correctional system. Being able to make sure that that funding is increased or reprioritized. We know that states are entering a very, very tough budget climate because of the effects of this stay-at-home and shelter-in-place that we've gone through. But I think that it's going to take legislators to really rethink funding priorities. There's not going to be enough money to go around to fully fund everything that we would think is important for the state. So it really is going to be a reflection of the administration and then the legislative leadership, what their priorities are, and make sure that those priorities are funded at a level that work and make sense.
Same question to you, Sarah. And I'm always I always shake my head when we have a lot of conversations about the work you do. About it's super sad in certain scenarios. If initially my reaction is always it's silly that we don't take certain efforts for education seriously. But I guess what has been your perspective as it's evolved over the time of your work on government's impact and responsibility?
So I am a very proud Washingtonian. A little plug for Make Us Number 51. Everyone support it. Our government, it's unique in DC because we're not a state. We have a council, which is akin to a state legislature, but Congress has to approve all of our laws once they're proposed to Congress. So our legislature writes the laws, the executive branch says, okay, I'm good with this, and then we send it to Congress. So I am very proud of what my government has done in ensuring and working towards a more equitable city. We have passed a number of legislation recently that is reflective of what I believe are Washingtonian values, right? Equity, an anti-racist framework, ensuring that all people, regardless of court involvement, justice system involvement, can have opportunities. And with legislation, so we've passed some good laws recently, but with that, you need to put dollars behind it. So one thing we're doing in the city right now, as an example, it's not necessarily education related, but is we are trying to push for a trauma-based response to violence. And so we're having a lot of laws and a lot of things look at how we can integrate that and how we can change and remove old laws to focus on interrupting violence. But it doesn't really matter if you have a law in the books without the resources and the budget to back it up. So our justice system, our juvenile justice agency, has done a really good job in the past 5 years of giving kids not just, a internship opportunity, but providing them with an internship opportunity that also pays. All my clients are low income and they cannot afford, they don't have the privilege to take internships at, where places that don't pay. They just can't do that. And a lot of people cannot. So that's just one example of things that government agencies can do for the young people that they are responsible for, is that they can create programming that is tailored to remove the systemic barriers that these young people face to workforce development, to employment opportunities, to education. And get creative, use your imagination. COVID is going to be hard and all of our state budgets are suffering because of the reaction to COVID. But, we can piggyback on defund the police. Let's take away some money there and let's put it into employment. Let's put it back into the community where it belongs. So I think the role of government is to do that. And it's a little bit of a controversial role. I understand that, but that's what I believe it should do.
Well, Sarah, why do we make it so hard to access education? It doesn't make sense. Someone you use the, again, if somebody is court involved and it only makes sense that when somebody re-enters, we want them to be ready to hit the ground running. Why do we make that so difficult?
Well, my answer is structural racism. But if we step back from that, I think a lot of agencies, it's really difficult to the answer I get a lot when I'm like, why isn't my client enrolled in school? Why wasn't my client provided this? Why aren't you doing this? Why isn't there a reentry plan when he's getting discharged from the jail? Why are we doing all these things? The answer is, it's really too hard to do it. DC is in a unique position. We don't have a prison. Our prison system is actually, we contract with the Federal Bureau of Prisons to run our prison. Again, another reason to everyone support us being number 51. So anyone that's serving a sentence for a term of incarceration in DC is in a Federal Bureau of Prisons facility across the country. And when I ask our school district to ensure that they have access to education, the response is, it's too hard. How am I going to do that? We need to get creative, and we need to actually show that people have value and that we are striving toward an equitable city.
Gerry, when you think about policy and you work with a lot of corporate clients, what should the average or the typical C-level executive know today, or be more involved in and pay more attention to, from your perspective, kind of being having a front row seat for the way things work in labor and policy at the state or federal level? What should we be caring about more if the focus of a business is to try to create a model that is profitable and successful?
Well, I think it's a couple things. I think one, I think COVID has kind of forced all of us into a whole different mode of consciousness as it relates to of work. The whole concept of work. Everyone before COVID and shelter in place, where you were forced to sit in your home for 2-3 months, as it were here in New Jersey. I think it's actually longer than 3 months. It really forced you to kind of reprioritize how you remain productive. And I think that a lot of companies are kind of starting to rethink that as well, and maybe say, maybe it's not about 4 walls and windows and an office, and maybe it's allowing more portability between employees and getting a little more creative as it relates to how you go about your jobs. I also think it's constant training and retraining. Business is starting to be conducted differently because it has to, right? I mean, you can't. You can no longer rely on kind of the normal lines of business and the normal lines of workflow, because at any minute, at least until we find a vaccine, because at any minute, that workflow could stop abruptly if the virus spikes and you have to shut down state again. So I think that it provides an opportunity to the nimble and for the folks that are being creative. Sam, I know from your experience in the city of Newark, if you have a mayor who is dedicated and really wants to work and develop local workforce, those corporate neighbors and tenants get the message, and they respond accordingly. They provide resources for a strong workforce development program. They lean fully in on the notion of allowing a second chance for folks that are coming out of the criminal justice system to transition back to productive members of society. So I think it's a question of leadership. but it's also a question of where the country's kind of going right now. And I think the companies that understand that tide and understand that business as usual is it's not usual anymore, are gonna do better than the ones that kind of stay stuck in their past practices, in my view.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, I've always believed companies have a tremendous responsibility, and they have the power to impact government in certain ways that can make certain topics more important. Sarah, to the HR directors that are listening today, or to the C-level executives, what do you say to them when, as you think about the conversation through the lens of your work? When we think about companies who are saying things like they want diversity, they want to give opportunities to frontline workers, they want to create a minimum, they want to create a pay scale that is a living wage. What do you say to them as how they're doing or what they should be doing more of?
Do the work, put in the time to do meaningful race equity work and implement an anti-racist framework throughout all of your policies, throughout all of your infrastructures. Make it a cultural lifestyle in and out of your organization. Learn what are best, you should be able to answer if I say, what are best hiring practices to ensure equitable employment opportunities and to promote inclusion and diversity. You should be able to tell me what they are, and you should be implementing them actively. You should be doing blind resumes by removing people's names. There's a number of things that you should be doing to overcome your own implicit bias and to actually repair the hundreds of years of oppression and dismantle the racism that we're seeing that is integral tenets in our companies and organizational structures and cultures.
The one every time go ahead.
I'm sorry, Dan, if I may, I think Sarah's absolutely right, and I think the irony of this conversation, which is put into kind of stark relief now because of all the unrest over social injustice, which is just kind of really kind of out there in the consciousness of everyone now, right? And I think COVID played a big factor in that because, people usually are used to just running around and I can speak for myself, by the time you look up, it's 9, 10 o'clock at night, and you're like, man, I've been moving all day. COVID forced you to kind of slow down, sit in a confined space. And even if you were working, you're just more aware of other things. So I think that definitely played a role in what you see in this kind of just, uprising of feelings and thoughts around some of these issues. The irony of all of this is that if companies really looked to gain an understanding of all their employers, no matter what race or circumstance they come from, it actually could create more revenue, more income generation. We're a very diverse company, but we're a very diverse country, but it's a diverse world out here. When you embrace that and you understand that, the profit possibilities are endless. It's always kind of baffled me, and especially as a lobbyist who's represented some pretty big companies, and when I'm in the C-suite talking to some of these CEOs, a lot of them a large swath of Black and brown and other minorities partake in their product, have no clue, no understanding, and nor do they want one, which I don't get it. I'm like, look, I'm assuming the driving force is everybody wants to make money. So, you're leaving money on the table by not having a global understanding of your customer and a sensitivity to that customer. Nobody's saying that you got to become best friends with folks that, that you don't necessarily know, but you have to at least understand them and create a lane for them to feel appreciated. And by the way, that definitely will lead you to better profit margins, better business opportunities, and more talent. I think this has been an important time. It's an uncomfortable time. because a lot of tough conversations are happening. I'm very glad it is happening because I think that it will lead to a stronger workforce, a stronger unit. I really do believe that.
I have one thing to add on that. I challenge all of the C-suite people watching this and listening to go take a race equity class. Go learn what it means to try to implement these values in your company. Go understand what you're doing that excludes people, whether it's intentionally or you just don't realize that you're doing something. I challenge you to go do that. Go do that this year.
Amen.
Great. As I wish we could talk all day, but we all have work that we got to get to. I have one question I'm asking everybody at the end of their session. The sort of guiding principle to this event was the future of work is not about work, it's about people. I would like to maybe start with Gerry. What is your hope for the future as you look at where we're going when it comes to work? What is your hope?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, I think selfishly, because I have, 2 teenage Black boys that are getting ready to enter into this workforce. I would want them to be able to enter into any occupation with the belief that if they work hard, study, and understand, understand the processes of where they work, that they will move up with merit. And there's no other factor that will keep them from going or not going to higher levels within business. I think that work in general is going to shift. And I think that, more folks are going to be keen on creating a better work kind of home balance. I think, I joke with a lot of my friends who are just like, I just can't wait to get back to the office. I kind of have the opposite. It's been an eye-opening experience and a great experience for me to be home all the time and dealing with my kids and dealing with my wife. It's been a great experience. So I think that as we move forward into this kind of new normal, I think there's a lot of opportunities to kind of for government to create the space to allow people to be able to create a better balance between work and home. And I think that hopefully we can continue this dialogue. I thank you for having me on this Zoom, Sam, and Sarah. It was a pleasure to meet you virtually. I also think that people are having a lot more honest conversations these days, and that's refreshing. As somebody who's been in lobbying for a long time and talking to folks who, I never felt were truly transparent in our interaction or always had, a different motive. I just find that there's just a lot more open, honest conversation these days, which I appreciate. I want to know where you're coming from, whether I agree with you or not. I just think it bodes for a better interaction and a better relationship and outcome. A little long-winded, but that was a great question.
Great. No, thank you. That was great. Sarah, what's your hope?
That everyone can have an opportunity to work and to, what Gerry said he wants for his kids. Everyone should have an opportunity to work. Great. So that's the session. I want to thank everybody on our panel today for sharing. I had some powerful takeaways I was writing down during the session, and I'm sure everybody else was as well. And thank you both. Thanks, Sam.
Okay.
Cool.
Great to meet you,
Sam.
Gerry.
Great to meet you, Sarah. And